Let's say you're a sports fan.
Hey, I'm a sports fan.
A fan who traded in a smartphone and bought a new one on AT&T Next.
Oh, yeah.
Now you stream the game from the parking lot instead of paying for nosebleeds.
Tailgating for pros.
And you can use your new phone to check on your fantasy team instead of your honey-do list.
Oh, no, that's me.
And with the money you saved, now you can make that reality show about your fantasy sports team.
Okay, so I got an idea.
Right. Sports fans, you too can get up to $650 in credits per line when you switch to AT&T. Trade in your current phone and buy a new one on AT&T Next. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Come in now and get the shatter and water-resistant Samsung Galaxy S7 Active exclusively at AT&T.
Shatter-resistant when dropped less than 5 feet on a flat surface. IP68 water-resistant and less than 5 feet for up to 30 minutes. Rinse residue. Dry drops may cause scratches. Other damage to screen body. Limited time offer. Each line requires eligible port-in, trade-in, purchase, and service. Get minimum of $5 trade-in credit plus prepaid card and amount of device balance or early termination fee less trade-in fees, charges, and restrictions apply. See store for details.
Farrell, how's your fantasy football going this year?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm 5th in the league.
Wow! How much money did you make out of that then?
Well, nothing.
Well, that's where you're going wrong, Farrell. At DraftKings, you can put your fantasy football knowledge to the test and win bare cash every week.
Really? Please tell me more.
Well, look, thanks to Fulhamish, you can have a go at winning up to 150 quid without spending a penny. Just go to draftkings.co.uk/Fulham and enter this Saturday's Premier League contest for free.
Sounds amazing. What was that address again?
draftkings.co.uk/Fulham.
Sounds amazing. What's that address again?
It's draftkings.co.uk/Fulham.
Can you spell that out, Sammy?
DRAFTK ings.co.uk/ you know how to spell Fulham. Hello and welcome to Fulhamish Podcast. My name is Sammy James. This is the weekly show all about the trials and tribulations of Fulham Football Club. This week, I'm joined by Farrell, Ben and Jack. Thank you for joining me this evening, gents.
Thank you for having us.
Interesting fact to start off. When Republican presidents took office from Democrats, the last two times, Fulham went on to get promotion and reach the playoffs. So let's hope that in light of Donald Trump taking office at the White House, that Fulham may go on to do something similar this season.
I think that's the first positive omen of a Donald Trump presidency that's been mentioned thus far.
We've got plenty to get through in today's podcast, looking at Saturday's draw with Sheffield Wednesday as Great Scott saved Fulham in the 91st minute, and we'll also be rounding off our Forgotten Fulham segment. Well, let's get started with the match action from Saturday. Difficult game, but we managed to come through it with a point. So the Visa said after the game, if we'd have played this last year, we would have lost 3-0. Do one of you want to start off by saying if you agree with that or not?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the case. It seems to be now that over the past few years, we've been having that problem where we'd sort of win a game 2-0 and the next game we'd lose 5-0. We kind of got out of that habit of conceding lots and lots of goals, and the Craven Cottage being the place to see goals regardless of which team it's for. But certainly we rode our luck for large portions of the game on Saturday. They had a host of chances to start off with. They should have been outside by 60, 70 minutes.
Yeah, there was some heart-stopping moments is what I've got down here. But I thought we looked harder to beat. And, you know, when teams don't put those chances away in the past, we've managed to still capitulate. And the fact that we didn't and we then went on to dominate the last sort of exchanges, I think that's got to be a positive and something that we need to sort of look at and be like, good. And, yeah, it was hairy at times, especially towards the end of that first half. But yeah, I think it's a positive that we can come through, and we're often on the end, the other team, on the end of losing those games we dominate for so long. It's nice to see the reverse coming through a little bit and us, you know, riding our luck and coming through with something, and, you know, maybe should have won it.
And only 4 teams, Ben, have lost fewer games than us this season. Newcastle and Brighton are probably the two that wouldn't surprise you. Actually, Birmingham and Villa are the other teams that have lost fewer games than us. There's certainly a resilience to us this season, and also it's very positive now. 5 games this season have seen Fulham score after the 90th minute.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like you said, the resilience is definitely there. We look more compact and as a team, and our system looks like it's been embedded for a long time. Looks like we're now fully integrated in what Slavisa wants us to do. And I think the thing that you obviously pointed out there is that scoring in the 91st minute means that we're obviously a fitter team than we ever were now. I think last season, the season before that, we tended to concede a lot of late goals, whereas this season it's quite the opposite. We're scoring later goals, which obviously Slavisa and the team have addressed, or his very deep and wide medical and fitness team has addressed the issues we had there, and they don't seem to be there anymore. In fact, it's much more of a positive.
Sheffield Wednesday last season were not a team that Fulham enjoyed facing. We lost 3 times to them, twice in the league, once in the cup, all by 1 goal. And actually, I specifically remember the game at Craven Cottage in the league being very similar to Saturday's game. Ross Wallace scored an absolute blinder. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And another good Sheffield Wednesday goal this Saturday from Forestieri, lovely link-up with Gary Hooper. And they were very niggly in that game, and Fulham struggled to get a foothold. And lots have been mentioned about Wednesday's tactics. There was a lot of gamesmanship, and I think Kieran Westwood in the goal was wasting a lot of time, ended up in a yellow card. Fulham seemed to struggle with that tactic on Saturday.
I thought we struggled with Forestieri and Hooper, to be honest. The rest of them, I think it was, a bit tit for tat in the middle, and there was some horrible challenges being thrown around. But I really thought the first time I've seen Callas struggle with a striker, and I suppose that goes to show how good Gary Hooper is. And it seems a long time that Fulham were linked with Gary Hooper, and there was a lot of should we sign him, should we? And he wasn't brilliant to begin with for Wednesday, but he's really starting to show that class a little bit better, a little bit more now. And I think that he looks like a really, really good player again, and like glimpses of what he was like at Celtic, and he was lethal north of the border. Yeah. And so, I think we rode our luck a bit at times, but it wasn't. I thought that there were niggles here and there, but I thought the ref was a bit poor on both counts. I didn't think it was just towards us. There was a couple of things in the first half where Hooper nudged Callas or nudged Sigurdsson and got through, and the ref gave a couple of decisions our way that were very questionable, and we would have been in uproar if they'd gone the other way against us.
Well, we had the penalty decision that went against us, which was an absolute stonewall. They were trying to trade shirts with each other. It was crazy. I was listening to the match action again today, and Jim in the stand was apoplectic. I think the word is. He was like, okay, penalty, it is. The ref's not giving it. That is mental. And it wasn't just bias either way. There were decisions going against both teams on Saturday that were just, I think the referee had a bit of a mare, which I don't usually criticise referees, being one myself in the past. So for me to come out and say, you had a bad one today is, saying a lot. Yeah,
the consistency of the refereeing in the Championship is very hit and miss at times. But I think any team that is on the ascent to the top, whether that be to the playoffs or to the title, has to have that sort of element of the dark arts behind them. Like Leicester did it a lot last season. They were very niggly, especially in the midfield, with like Kante and Drinkwater. And I think there was some similarities there with them and Wednesday, in that they both were like I say, quite scrappy in the middle, gave away scrappy fouls. But I think the wider issue there is that they were so good at closing us down. Their front four worked as a great unit to put us under pressure at every given opportunity.
Wednesday played a really interesting system, which Burnley did quite well at last year, where they were pushing their strikers really high up and their attacking midfielders really high up to try and nick the ball off high up the pitch. Yep. But the defence dropped quite deeply, which kind of drew our strikers, our striker and our wingers quite far back from our defence, which means there wasn't that much of an outlet for our defence to actually get through to them. If it was quite a compact or very high-pressured, a traditional sort of high-pressured system where all the defence really push up as well and try and get the ball off them there, then we would probably exploit them better there, because we've got the players like Piazzon and Aluko and Johansson are going to keep dropping deep and picking it up. Yeah. But because their defence kept on dropping all the way back, they stayed quite with their defence, and therefore they were still 40, 50 yards away from him, and therefore there was no outlet for Callas.
That's a really good point, because in terms of the way that we struggled to play against them, we've been mentioning time and time again how we need to be as a team, because we have those players that play off intricate, sort of, flicks and tricks, and the way that we get through players is through those kind of intricate manoeuvres.
And against Brentford, they were doing that traditional high pressure, because they pushed all their defence really high up, which meant Malone and Fredericks just exploited the channels so much, because there was so much space for them in behind.
Yeah, we are really good at playing through the press. The thing that we don't like doing is when the ball has to go further than 10, 15, 20 yards. And Wednesday, straight from the off, literally from kickoff, were forcing us to go long at every opportunity. One thing their left and right backs did quite well was they forced Piazzon to sit on top, or Aluko on either side, to sit on top of their left and right back, respectively. And it was just literally like they were 5 or 10 yards away from each other. But additionally to that, they were about 20 yards away from Kearney and even further away from Martin. It was just like the lines were everywhere. They'd done a really good job of just distorting the whole team to the point where it was really hard for us to circulate the ball, to keep it moving, to do those intricate 1-2s that we normally do. But then second half, that sort of changed and we could get our passes going a bit better, especially with Parker coming on.
I sort of, at half time, I was talking to my brother about how do we have a plan B? Do we have a plan B unless it's going to be Smith? And we changed it up at half time and it went to more of a traditional 4-4-2, which I thought, okay, let's see how this goes. But we were just exploited more on the wings more, as we've gone on about it quite a lot in the past, with Kearney going on the wing. It just doesn't work. Yeah. And therefore thinking to ourselves, right, what's the plan C? And I thought Slavica did an absolute masterstroke of his substitutions, because we actually went back to our plan A, which didn't seem to work, but the different players that came on totally changed the complexion of the game.
Well, Ayite in particular coming on for Piazzon added a much more direct style to our play, and he really gave their defence cautious moments.
Yeah, I thought so. The other person I thought that did really well when he came on was Dennis Odoi, who I've been quite critical of in the past, and I thought he was really, really good, and as a massive Fredericks fan, but you know, I thought Odoi was excellent, and fair play to him. He's obviously been out of the team and he's come under a bit of the cosh since that wonderful back flick. But he's come under a bit, and people have been like, well, maybe he isn't all that, because when he came on Saturday, he was excellent. And I just thought that when the changes came, and we looked a bit dishevelled in the middle of the park when we didn't have, an option, with Kearney out on the wing when that happened, and he went missing, and so did Piazzon. And I know obviously you can't take Kearney off because he was the one that delivered the ball in the end for the goal, but at the same time, I thought that that's what he was going to do at that point. I thought he was going to pull Parker on and drop Johansson forward, who had another brilliant game.
Well, it was a game made for Stefan Johansson because it was niggly. There was a lot. It wasn't a fluid game, but actually he was everywhere. And once again, he seems to be the find of the season, really.
Yeah, he's doing really well. Him and Malone, eh? But yeah, it was when Parker came on and started to slow the ball down in the middle, look up and look for the pass, that it really started to change and it really started to come good again. And I think that there's something to be said there, that if we're struggling to break teams down and we're struggling to find those killer passes, then maybe Parker ahead of McDonald is the answer there.
I never thought I'd heard Scott Parker like the impact sub.
Yeah,
I never thought I'd hear that, but like as you said this weekend, it was like you said, to get his foot on the ball and look for those interchanges, and as soon as he did, we looked a damn sight better than we did before he came on.
So that's why I say Slavica was such a masterstroke, because I think 75% of the fans at the game would have gone, right, time to get Matt Smith on, because nothing seems to be working at the moment. And that's where I think he's really earned his money there, going, right, we need to change it up, but let's not go crazy here. We just need a different type of player on the pitch.
There was a patience to the play as well. We didn't deviate from our initial strategy really in the game. Obviously, I know Slavica changed the tactics slightly, but it was patient. There was no, 75 minutes, there's 15 minutes left, and we're 1-0 down, so let's just go route one straight to Chris Martin. We still tried to play our football, and in the end, even in the 90th minute, where you'd think it would get just desperation, and that was really nice to see, and lovely that it paid off.
I think 15 minutes in football is a long time, regardless of how short you actually think it is, but the fact that he made some substitutions that were so offensive, offensively minded, as in taking a risk, is not
offending people.
Yeah, as in actually going after a result, wanting to get that result, is something that we haven't really seen before. And throwing Ayite on could have gone one of two ways. Either he's going to get exploited at every opportunity by their fullback, or he's going to push them so far back that we look much better in possession. And thankfully it was the latter, and it was such a bold move. I agree, it was fantastic sub.
I looked at the bench before the game and was in uproar because we had 3 defenders on the bench and Parker, and a keeper, obviously, which meant that the only two offensive players on the bench were Ayite and Smith. And I really did sort of, when we were 1-0 down with 20 minutes to go, I was going, well, what are we getting? Obviously, he's going to bring Ayite on, but, we all know that doesn't necessarily mean that something's going to change. I was like, this is where you look for, another player that might be able to, break in or looking for a replacement for Kenny even. And obviously, that wasn't the answer in the end. But it was one of those things where I was looking for an outlet. And I didn't think he was going to bring Smith on because he hasn't recently. And I didn't think that was going to be the way he went. And so it was one of those where I was like, well, what's he going to do? But I do think that maybe putting Ream and Sessegnon on the bench is a bit of a bizarre call. I don't know of anyone else.
Yeah, I think you could play Sessegnon wing if you were very, very desperate. Same as you could play Fredericks wing.
Yeah, of course, but that's not an offensive manoeuvre. Do you know what I mean? If you put Ryan Sessegnon on the wing, you're not going to be pushing for an extra goal. It's going to be you've got two left backs on. So I was, I was saying why. I don't know why you'd have both.
Well, they were interesting substitutes anyway for an attacking team. I know maybe I was trained in the classic football manager school of tactics, but if you're losing a game 1-0, you throw on 3 strikers and you go 4 up front. If you think about it...
half time.
Yeah.
After 10 minutes, yeah.
The changes he made, Ayite for Piazza, that was a direct change, but then Adoy for Fredericks and Parker for McDonald don't seem like the most attacking substitutions you've ever made, but actually they were very effective, and I think his substitutions were what got us the point, and what very nearly got us 3. We had chances in stoppage time after Malone's goal to go on and nick it, which would have been incredible.
Those kind of subs remind me of another manager that you might have heard of, Roy Hodgson.
I thought you were going to say Farrell Monk for a second. Then.
you might have heard of him. When in the summer at the World Cup, Roy Hodgson made some very uncharacteristic substitutions whereby he was throwing on strikers left, right and centre. When we're used to seeing him not even making a sub, even if we're losing, until 10-15 minutes ago, he's just like, I'm not going to change it up. I have faith in the players. I'll only really make a sub if I really need to, or I really need to change it up. But it won't be your, throwing on massive amounts of players. From the time I remember him at Fulham, it was a case of, right, we might be drawing the game, might be losing, might be winning, but it's just not going to be the substitutions that everyone's going to be calling for because, I don't know how he does it, but that's just what I remember from him. So it's kind of similar to how Slavica did it on Saturday.
Yeah, losing 1-0 at home with 10 minutes to go, and the substitution he makes is Stephen Kelly on for John Pansel at right back. What are you doing? Stop it. And we score 2.
Yeah. It's genius. It's genius.
Well
Stephen
done,
Kelly.
boy. Well done, mate.
Speaking of little moments of genius, Sheffield Wednesday's first goal was a lovely move.
Yeah.
We've spoken already about Hooper and Forestieri. Actually, I don't know if you saw on Twitter that... or even on the match action yourselves when watching the replay, that Forestieri was actually offside in the build-up, but quite a few moments, but it was quite a long time before it actually went in the net, but still an offside's an offside. But that was one of those goals, and we met at half-time. We bumped into each other, and you even said... I nearly stood up and applauded.
Yeah, it was an unbelievably well-worked goal.
Yeah, how good was that dummy?
Oh, unbelievable.
Completely sold Callum
incredible.
Well, you mentioned the
Ross Wallace.
The Ross Wallace goal. I think I can't remember if it was the FA Cup game or the away leg league game, but Barry Bannon scored an absolute worldie against us as well. So, I mean, Wednesday...
Something about Sheffield Wednesday saving their best for facing Fulham. I just got me thinking about goals that I've seen at the Cottage that you've just gone, well done. Very, very well done. The one that instantly strikes in my mind is David Luiz's goal for Chelsea. Just 40 yards, nothing on, and they just said shoot and straight in the top corner. That always stands out to me as one of the best efforts I can remember in recent memory. I mean, there have been lots of great goals against us. There's been lots of goals against us in the last few years.
Some of them had to be good. Mladen Petric springs to mind. That free kick. And obviously at the time it was far too painful to you acknowledge it as a wonderful free kick, but in hindsight, a glorious, glorious goal.
When I've watched the highlights back, which I have done hundreds and hundreds of times, the the commentator was so harsh on Swartz.
I know.
He goes, "Oh, we probably should have got there." And I was like, "What? Are you watching a different goal? That flew like a rocket."
And
Postage
swerved
stamp.
about 17 times as well. Like, is it left? Is it right? Is it left? Like, it was an unbelievable goal. All at the Hammersmith end.
I've got two, not at the Hammersmith end.
Oh, okay.
In the same game, we lost 5-0 to United in about 2011, and it was 3-0 at half-time, and in the second half, Rooney literally picked the ball up about 30 yards out, drove forward and just pinged one into the top corner. And then about 5 minutes later, Berbatov scored an unbelievable back heel.
Yeah. Was that an
I've
FA
got one
Cup
from
game?
United as well.
I know, I think it was a Premiership game.
I think it was a league game, yeah.
It was, yeah. I've got one from United from 2007. Cristiano Ronaldo picked it up on the left-hand side around about the halfway line and just literally just drove past about 4 or 5 defenders and then just tucked it low into the opposite corner. And that secured United the title that year. And they were 1-0 down at that. No, yeah, 1-0 down at
And
that
I think it was
point.
like
And they needed to win.
88th minute.
88th minute, yeah.
It didn't. I don't think it wasn't mathematically, but it was the moment really where.
Yeah, they clinched the title.
Oh, was it actually mathematical? They did it that day.
I think
maybe.
so.
I think it was, but I think it was because someone else lost.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I ran over to the bench and there was all manner of players. Quinton Fortune, amazing player.
Jemba.
Yeah.
Was that in the Coleman years?
07 that was.
Yeah, just the end of the Coleman years. So coming up on Saturday, really tough game away to Brighton. Would you say this is our toughest of the season? Obviously we faced Newcastle at home, but I believe that was a completely different Newcastle to the one that is tearing up the division now. Obviously last year, painful memories of the 5-0 defeat. We'll be hoping that it might be a little bit more like the season before where Lasavig and Christensen picked us up 3 points down at the Amex.
I would say it's going to be probably our toughest because we've obviously played some really good teams already this year in the Championship, but this is probably the first one where they're on hot form because we've obviously played Norwich and they've been sort of up and down. They've won a few. They lost. I think they lost before they played us, or at least drew. And obviously we played Newcastle, but they hadn't played yet this year. But Brighton, apart from, I think they drew against Villa in their last game, they've absolutely smashed some teams. They beat Norwich 5-0. For God's sake.
Yeah, I mean, as a unit, I don't think it's, other than Newcastle, it's very hard to put another team on par with them. And the fact they've got like players like Knockout that at the moment I don't think is playing because a member of his family passed away, but they're not missing him in any way, and he's just a fantastic player.
I think he's going to be back this weekend.
Yeah.
As a part of our luck. But
Did you see Sidwell's goal?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ginger Iniesta.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
I felt nothing but pride when I saw that. That was
As if he
stunning.
came through your youth system.
Yeah, I know. Like,
He's one of our own.
yeah.
Stockdale as well. It's a visit for the old boys.
And Liam Rossini.
He's still there.
I'm
I believe
not sure
so.
if he's playing.
Oh, I thought he's certainly there. Whether he's in the first team or not, I couldn't tell you. It seems like an interesting one for Brighton because they've been there or thereabouts for a while now. They are a very big club, actually, with massive potential. And you think down how many like untapped, because I'm from that area and I know so many Brighton supporters, and they're really the only club in both West or East Sussex, which is a huge, apart from Crawley Town.
Considering where the stadium is it even in Sussex?
No,
It's so far out of
it's
town.
pretty much Kent by the time you've actually got out of Brighton. So it's certainly going to be a tough match. But what I was thinking is, it feels a bit like now or never for Brighton, actually, because surely now some big teams and some big fish are going to be thinking they've got a good team down there and they're just going to get stripped of players. I mean, they might be able to do a Southampton and bring more through. I know they've got a very good youth system down there.
They bought someone called Jack Harper from Real Madrid over the summer, who was meant to be the next big thing.
He's a Scottish fella.
Yeah, a Scottish fella. He was playing for Real Madrid Castilla as their captain a couple of years ago, and was meant to be very, very good, and has since been injured. So he's coming through. I don't know about the rest of
I don't know. But I think it's the first test I think we'll have where it's one of those where we go, can we mix it now with the big boys in this league? Have we got to that point where we can look to play Brighton at their own game, look to play our possession game? And is it going to work against? It might not work against, your Burton Albions who might score a lucky goal and then put 11 men behind the ball. But realistically, those games come and go. Whereas if we go to Brighton and get result, I think there will be a genuine turning point in terms of being like, okay, maybe we can, produce a playoff this season. I think that's what would come of it.
Yeah.
I don't think it would necessarily write that off if we go there and lose. but I think it would put a spanner in the works.
I think the game will be much more open than we think it's going to be as well.
Yeah, I agree.
These two teams are going to want to play football, like you say.
Yeah.
It's going to be like Burton Albion.
And if you're heading down to Brighton, it's going to be one of the most expensive away trips of the season. Quite interesting with the price of football, the fact that I think 7 championship clubs charge more than the Premier League to go see an away game. The most expensive, do you know who that is?
In the
Sheffield
Championship.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Sheffield Wednesday must be.
£42.
It's a joke.
The maximum
It's actually
tickets.
a joke.
The reason why they do that is because what they charge the home fans for in the Kop. That is criminal. Charging your own fans £42 to go to home versus Fulham, or home versus Burton Albion.
To be fair, West Ham United are charging £65 for a under-18s ticket for West Ham versus Arsenal.
Wow.
But the limit on away fans is £30 in the Prem. You can't charge anyone more than £30.
That new thing for this year, isn't it?
It's 2 years old now. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very interesting now that because it's not a cap in the Championship, and there's no way without this cap that the Premier League tickets would be so cheap. But it's interesting now that it's more expensive to go away and watch Championship football than it would be to go watch Premier League football, which seems typical as soon as we get relegated.
I don't know if the Championship as a league can actually be regulated like the Premier League can. Because the Premier League is a separate body with its own sponsors, whereas the Championship, I believe, call me out if I'm wrong, is still an FA-run league.
It is, yeah.
There is. The only other thing is that I think there's 5 or 6 clubs in the Championship signed up to 20's plenty.
Yeah.
Which is it's basically a 20 quid cap for away. And so, I don't know if that can be enforced or if that's just down to clubs deciding that they have to call it. But surely that's such a like a sensible initiative. Like
all the major leagues are sort of governed by themselves.
Yeah.
So the people that run the leagues are the ones that are in them. So if all the teams say we want all away tickets capped at £30, that goes. There's no Richard Scudamore type person making that decision. It's the leagues that decide.
Yeah.
So I would think it's the same as the Championship as well, and but I think it's the whole of the Football League.
Yeah.
So the Football League itself is all 92 clubs.
Yep.
So the Championship is run by 92 separate teams. So if even if all of the teams in League 2 say yes, 20's plenty or 30's plenty, then it has to be. Well, I don't know if it's a majority or it's got to be over 60 or 70.
Yeah. So like Barnet, for example, I know because my dad supports them. Is probably. You're looking at 25 quid for an away ticket there. And that's to watch League 2 standard football.
Might not even get a seat.
Yeah, and you're probably not going to get a seat. You're probably not going to be dry if it rains. But then you get like the likes of the Amex Stadium, which is massive. You're going to have a seat. Like 25 is plenty there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is the best league in the world, but,
Yeah.
90 minutes football at the end of the day, it's not...
Well, Fulham come out okay in the away fans tickets. It's £25 maximum if you buy in advance for a ticket, or £20 for the lower grades of clubs. However, we have the most expensive cup of tea in the country.
of course we do.
Yeah, I was the mug that bought one for my girlfriend at the weekend. I was surprised.
And the second most expensive pie.
Behind who?
West Ham is 10p more to get a pie.
How much is a pie?
It's £4. I bought a pie on Saturday, actually.
Yeah,
it's
£4.
It's a lovely pie. Interesting today, talking of pies.
Craven Cottage pie?
No, it was a steak and ale pie, which you can't get into puns with Craven Cottage.
There is a cottage pie that you can buy as well.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah.
I didn't just make that up.
No. I thought you just come up with an unbelievable business proposition. You sell that one to the club.
Surely someone thought of that years ago. Interesting story today in the Daily Telegraph. Fulham linked with Huddersfield striker Nahki Wells after he rejected a new contract there. He was one of the players in the summer when it was inevitable that Ross McCormack was going. He was my first choice, really, as someone to replace him. A fast, pacey striker. But, I mean, I've ended up really liking Chris Martin. I'm not sure Nahki Wells is the striker we need to fit with our system, but he certainly knows where the net is, and he's got big aspirations of playing in the Premier League. So he'd be a great asset to us if he did come. I'd be
really pleased if they could work them two in together. That'd be a hell of a strike force, with a lot of goals between them in the Championship. I mean, I don't know how much Martin has played with a second striker alongside him. But you'd imagine that, the big man who wins headers and the short man who runs in and scores goals would work together, a.k.a. Kevin Phillips and Niall Quinn.
Well, it is interesting because we've said it before. If Chris Martin does get injured, there isn't really a plan B other than Matt Smith. And actually, in depth in the striking department, you've got Corley.
Well, you're gonna get slated by loads of Fulham fans who love Corley Woodrow now.
I mean, I've always been a big fan of Corley. I've always wanted to do it, but this season, especially when he's had his opportunities, you do just wonder if he is going to make it. Someone else
needs to go out on loan.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in this, there's a wonderful article on Fulhamish called "We Need to Talk About Corley."
And soon to be an article, and as another potential option for striking, is Stephen Humphreys, banging in the goals for the under-21s at the moment. He's red hot form.
Yeah, he's got 8 in 10 in the PL2, which is some record. He got a hat-trick against Borough this week. And that, brought him up to 8 in 10, and he really looks like he could be something special. But, I mean, how many times have we said that about someone, I suppose? But, we've brought players through recently, and they've, come good. Moussa Dembele has more goals than Messi and Ronaldo this season. So that's a stat to remember as a Fulham fan. But, Humphreys, he does look good, and, it was good for him to get away with the boys in the summer to go on the pre-season tour, and he seemed to do well, and he seemed to get on with them, which is obviously nice to see as well. Article on Stevie Humphreys coming in soon, hot on fulhamish.co.uk.
When I covered Fulham under-21s versus West Ham under-21s last year for the club, Humphreys by far and away looks the most complete player in that squad, like head and shoulders above anyone else. And I think for me it's quite clear, as it is for you, Jack, that he probably is going to make it sooner rather than later. I think he can. Probably cut it at League 2, League 1 level already.
Yeah, 100%. Might be nice to get him out on loan this second half of the season, let him have a crack. But the only other thing is his contract runs out in June, and we haven't tied him down to a new deal.
And how old is he?
He's 19.
Oh, so we haven't got a Moussa Dembele situation on our hands where we can't get him to sign the contract?
No, he can sign a contract. It's just, it's bizarre. I find it bizarre that he's doing so well, and he's been obviously, part of the club's plans, especially if he's going away with them in pre-season and stuff, and he hasn't been locked down to a longer contract. So hopefully we'll rectify that shortly. You'd imagine the club would be looking into that already. Because
there was a lot of frustrating comments, actually, I saw, I don't know which message boards it was, about Moussa Dembele, and obviously he's getting profile now because he is the top scorer in Europe. Yeah. Well, he's definitely above Messi and Ronaldo. I mean, don't think how many Messi and Ronaldo would get if they were playing Kilmarnock every week.
He's still behind Tammy Abraham, I think.
Oh, really? But a lot of people saying, why didn't we get him down to a contract? This seems crazy. He went for free. We couldn't have done anything with Moussa Dembele. There was nothing that could be done.
Also, him staying in Britain was excellent for us because we got some money.
Yeah. If he'd gone to Dortmund like he was meant to, we wouldn't have got anything.
And also they would have had 2 players called Dembele, so that would have been annoying.
Absolutely.
It's the reason why they went.
Yeah, they were like, we got too many.
Imagine if he went to Spurs.
Jesus, no, too much.
It's Moussa Dembele to Moussa Dembele, back to Moussa Dembele, goal.
We were discussing this at some point over the summer, that if he had signed for Spurs, how would they have done it on like radio? So like Moussa with 1 S? Like French Moussa Dembele and Belgian Moussa Dembele, like bizarre.
Yeah.
How would commentators deal with that?
Just have to give them nicknames.
Lil Moussa and Big Moussa.
Yeah. Young Moussa and old Moussa.
Lil Moose.
Well, speaking of strikers, we've got some very important business because we've got to finish off our Forgotten Fulham 11. This is something that we started. We didn't get time to do it on the podcast before last. We had plenty to discuss after the triumphant Brentford game and all the Facebook Live shenanigans. That's still on the Facebook page if you fancy watching that. Go to facebook.com/FulhamishPod. So Forgotten Fulham was an idea born out of the pub by Farrell, where we basically are looking for an 11 of players that have played for Fulham at least once, but you've completely forgotten about. We've got 3 places left in the Forgotten Fulham 11, our Forgotten Fulham 11, which we'll explain later. You will have your chances to create a Forgotten Fulham 11. So at the moment, it is thus, let's remind everyone, in goal, Martin Herrera. A back 4 of Nathan Ashton, Dean Leacock and Gabriel Zakawani in centre-back, and then Elliot Omazusi at right-back. A midfield trio of Leon Andreasen in the holding role. I must point out, the holding role. Robert Milsom and Bobby Petter who in midfield. And then we've got 3 up front. We've gone for a 4-3-3, more for logistical reasons than being our tactical preference. Oh, and on the bench, Pascal Zubabula, Paul Stalteri, Nicky Shorey, Darren Pratley and Alexis Smertens. There are 3 striking spots left in the starting 11 and then 2 striking spots left on the bench. It's got plenty to get through. Jack, let's start with you. A couple of nominations for Forgotten Fulham strikers, please.
I'm going to lead with Laurie Dalla Valle, who came to us as part of the swap deal for Paul Konchesky, I believe, from Liverpool. And on Football Manager 2009, Laurie Dalla Valle became one of the 3 best players in the world. He was also, I believe, some sort of world freestyling champion at football. So Laurie Dalla Valle gets, I think he made a League Cup appearance once.
And do we know what Dalla Valle has gone on to do since?
No, but I haven't heard of him.
Okay.
We also then signed a player called Della Verde.
Yeah,
which was really confusing. That was a new one.
We love having 2 players
LDVs.
Of similar names.
LDVs to go with LVC.
And Ben, a nomination from yourself for Forgotten Fulham strikers?
I'm going to go for Stefano Akaka.
Brilliant.
Who we had on loan from Roma for a while, only for about 10 games or so. My fondest memory of him is him scoring possibly one of the scrappiest goals I've ever seen against Wigan.
Yes, I remember.
It was a game that me and my dad attended when they had £10 tickets, which is pretty good. Last year went to Anderlecht, absolutely smashed it, scored 20-ish goals in the league and cup for them last year, and is now at Watford.
Okay. Farrell?
Tough one to choose from. I've got quite a few. My first one, I'll go for a more recent one, and then I'll go for an older one next one. I'll go for Gael Kakuta, not strictly a striker, but
controversial.
One is controversial for many reasons. He's famous for he got Chelsea almost banned.
Yes,
the transfer ban. He was the one at the centre of the tapping up scandal, which Chelsea managed to get away with. I'm not entirely sure how. I'm sure Roman had something to do with it.
He was a good player.
Yeah, he was
for us.
Brilliant when he came down to Fulham.
Yeah,
really good.
He didn't really break it into the first team. I know he started at least one game, which we won against Sunderland 3-0. I think he scored a good goal. Actually, it was a good little move, and then he just slotted it home with his left foot. In the lead up to that game, I was slating Mark Hughes. I thought it was just going to go absolutely terribly, and then I was checking the scores. And I'm winning 3-0. I love Mark Hughes.
He terrorised some defence. I remember him coming off the bench a couple of times and terrorising defences. He had such quick feet.
Yeah.
Really, really good player.
Really.
What's happened to him?
I think he ended up at Sevilla last year, actually. But he didn't make a huge impact, and I can't remember for the life of me where he is now. He's still in Spain, but I can't remember who for.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
so a couple of the players that we've picked are actually making waves in the footballing world. They haven't just gone off the radar, a bit like maybe Laura Dalla Valle has. One player that definitely, I think, went off the radar slightly, Rillers suggested this on Twitter, is Sol Ki-hyun.
Yeah.
Oh, we spoke about him last Forgotten Fulham as a midfielder.
Yeah. I'm sure we did.
I think that's a great shout.
He played for us in 2007. I believe, is he the only South Korean to play for Fulham?
I believe so.
He was another bearer of that famous Cursed 7 shirt that we own.
Yeah.
He played a bit under Laurie Sanchez and then went on to be the first South Korean player to ever score a Champions League goal, which was for RSC Anderlecht. A bit like Stefano Akaka. So that's my suggestion. Let's go round the table again. Back to Jack. Jack, how many players have you actually written down on your notepad full of notes?
18.
18?
Someone's been using Wikipedia.
It's been a slow day at work.
Yeah, I just like the podcast. I like knowing things. I look these things up. All of the people mentioned are on my list, so it's going well so far.
If you've got any freelance jobs for Jack, it sounds like he has got a little bit of time on the side. Maybe he may come up with slightly less Forgotten Fulham strikers though, so I'm not sure I want that to happen.
There's a couple. The one I was going to go for is Luke Cornwall, but I don't actually think he played.
No, he didn't. I looked this up earlier.
I don't think he got capped, and I'm not 100% sure Adam Taggart did either.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think you could probably put him forward.
I was so excited for Adam Taggart to come through the Fulham system. I was absolutely over the moon when we signed him. I was really, really pleased.
Really?
I'd spent ages. I spent ages looking him up. I really like Australian players. I think they work hard and and he had some unbelievable goals on his highlight reels. And,
Infamous highlight reels.
He looked like the real deal, and I was very excited about it.
These like Football Manager highlight
and
reels.
they're on YouTube, mate. And I posted an article about 2 years ago on Viva El Fulham about why Dembele's injury could have been Adam Taggart's golden chance to shine, and he never got that golden chance because unfortunately 2 days after I wrote the article we sold him. So,
someone at the club read your article and like, let's make some money.
We should get rid of that geezer because that Jack Collins bloke thinks that we should. So
kiss of death from Jack Collins.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to break your heart, but I think we're going to have to stick to the rules.
Yeah,
and it's going to have to be someone that's played.
In which case I'm going to go for Muammar Tankovic, who once famously played in the false nine against Manchester United.
It worked.
It did work.
Game.
Yeah, so that was a bizarre moment of everyone involved.
He set up a golden chance for Kieran Richardson, who blasted it over the bar from 5 yards. When it would have been 2-0 to Fulham that day.
I was very disappointed because he obviously came on leaps and bounds, one of the few people to come out of that season with some credit. And I really thought this is a player that could do great things in the Championship with us, but he had far higher aspirations. He didn't seem to have any desire to be playing in the second tier.
He had quite a tricky agent, if I remember. He was tatting him around quite early on in that season, and then he ended up going to FC20.
There was loads of reports about him wanting to leave even before he'd even started again.
Yeah, it's a good start, isn't it? This is a player, he's making his debut, doesn't really want to be here.
Yeah.
Ben, your last nomination for Forgotten Fulham striker?
I think for my list, I'm going to go for David Elm.
The classic.
Who arrived from Scandinavia. Again, during the Roy years, I believe. Another one of our Scandinavian imports. Only scored 1 goal for us in 10 appearances against Burnley in a 3-0 home win. And then had a massive double-page spread dedicated to him in the Sun afterwards. I can't figure out why. I thought he was amazing.
Was it on page 3?
Which he was. No, I thought he was amazing, but then ended up being...
Wasn't he the rubbish one of 3 brothers? And also, didn't we sign him at like 26 when he had the record of something like a goal every 5 games or a goal every 6 games in Norway?
Like that. Yeah, his brother Rasmus has played for Sweden a lot.
There's 2. There's another one who's also apparently okay.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name.
Can't remember his name.
The famous...
He's also got caps for Sweden, and David was the only one that doesn't have any.
It's
classic.
His brother played for CSKA Moscow.
Is this like the Nevilles? Because there is a third Neville brother, isn't it? I mean,
they play cricket.
And the sister played netball.
Yeah. Quite good at sport, the Nevilles, aren't they?
I know, but properly overshadowed by Gary and Phil.
His brother's called Victor Elm, who plays for AZ Alkmaar.
Okay.
There you go.
David Elm, I remember being there for that Burnley goal. I thought that was the start of great things to come.
It's classic Hodgson to have some average player coming to play for us, and all of a sudden, they actually turn good. 1 goal every, what did you say, 5 games or 5 years?
Something awful.
Farrell, a final nomination from yourself, please.
I'll go for an older one. I'll go with Tony Thorpe, who... when we were working our way up through the leagues and we're in Division 2 at the time, and we were absolutely smashing it that one season, 98-99. It was a case of, he was playing for Luton at the time, and he scored a couple of goals for us, against us, in the first half of the season. And it was a case of, well, if you can't beat them, buy them. So we bought him for quite a lot of money. He played a lot of subs appearances, but scored a couple of goals, and then we just shipped him off when we got promoted.
Bizarre.
There's a lot of great mentions on Twitter. Stan Collymore is one. Yeah. 3 appearances for Fulham. Callum Willock, Shefki Kuchi. I think, scored 1 goal.
Sanchez's panic buy when McBride got injured.
I mean, the panic buy of all panic buys. Oh my God, let's just get Shefki Kuchi in.
It was literally a square.
Yeah.
He was so wide.
I tell you what, the fans got really behind him. We were so...
Yes.
we
really wanted him get a goal. He never got a goal, though.
No, he did.
He scored.
He scored against Reading.
Yeah.
Did he?
It was a last minute. I think it was to get us to 3-1. It was literally on the line, from what I remember.
I thought Dempsey scored that one. I thought he headed it down for Dempsey.
I seem to remember
Shefki
Kuchi.
I
saw him scoring.
The big belly flop celebration in our shirt.
Really?
Yeah, I do remember that.
I think it pretty much was Dempsey that did all the work. A bit like David Nugent scoring his goal for England, which was definitely not David Nugent's goal in reality. But the player I'm going to go for is Eddie Johnson.
Yeah, big shout.
Surely one of the worst players I've ever seen in a Fulham shirt, but came with a high reputation.
Absolutely smashes
He's
it.
got a couple of caps for the American national team.
Yeah.
He had caps for the national team when he came over.
Goals for the international team, actually. Not even just caps.
He scored like 2025 about 3 or 4 seasons ago for Seattle. Absolutely smashed it.
He also didn't get much of a run. I do remember that. He didn't get many appearances.
He started against United, and the thing that struck out for me was he had a chest like a brick wall. They were throwing it down the line for him, and he tried to chest in it. Went further back than where the throw-in was taken from.
We've forgotten 2 key people, I feel. I feel like we've forgotten Yari Litmanen.
Again, never played.
Never played.
Didn't he?
No.
Are you sure?
I don't think
It was the ear injury.
He had a 10. He had the 10 shirt. I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember very
don't
excited
think
about
he
it.
was ever even named on the subs bench.
No, he never got
And
close.
someone who definitely has played because his 1 assist was against Chelsea in the League Cup.
Yes.
Elvis Hammond.
Yes. Yeah.
Johnson.
Yeah.
I went to a away FA Cup game in the 3rd round or 4th round, and this is when Elvis Hammond was playing for Leicester, and at half-time they had an Elvis impersonators competition. Half-time shows,
Especially because of Elvis Hammond.
Yeah.
Wow.
Excellent. Wow. I bet he's never heard that one before.
No. Tough gig being a footballer with the name Elvis. Okay, well, I've put in Elvis Hammond as a wildcard entry for the shortlist. So, to recap, Laurie Delaval, Stefano Akaka, Gael Kakuta, Solki Hyun, Mohamed Tankovic, David Elm, Tony Thorpe, Eddie Johnson and Elvis Hammond. So we've got 3 starting berths and 2 on the bench to finish us off. So, does anyone want to put a really strong case for someone that has to be in there?
I think Eddie Johnson should be in there. I think that's a classic.
I'd go Hammond as well.
See, I also think Elvis Hammond properly
Elvis
deserves. Although, a bit like Jerome Bonacel, so forgotten that I feel like he's unforgotten because people instantly always think of Elvis Hammond, but I would agree with you.
I think that about Eddie Johnson one they do about Elvis Hammond.
Do you?
I would
I agree.
I would go with Hammond,
Yeah.
So we're going with Elvis Hammond, definitely. Is that also a nomination for Eddie Johnson?
Maybe stick him on the bench.
Okay.
I'll go,
Johnson
Johnson
on the
bench.
Eddie Johnson, bench. I would love to see... I'd love to see Stefano Akaka either on the bench or in the starting lineup.
I'd love him in the starting lineup.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I think he's a strong player in the starting lineup. Might bag us a few goals if we have to play.
We have to pay this side.
I imagine this a bit like supporters clubs. You know how maybe the Fulham supporters team maybe goes away to West Ham supporters team. I'd like to see a bit, or like Legends football. The Forgotten Fulham 11 going up to Sunderland or something.
Maybe we could do Fulhamish versus the Forgotten. we could create a side and play the Forgotten Fulham 11 for like, I don't know, charity next summer or something.
I mean, that would
Big
be...
dreams.
If you can get hold of Alexis Merton.
Yeah, it's true.
I went to go and watch the London Masters one at Wembley Arena, and disappointingly, the West Ham had a late dropout, so Ian Pearce went from our team to West Ham's team instead.
Shocker.
And Ian Pearce was still playing sort of like Conference South or something like that at the time, and he was amazing. He was like Messi that day. He was banging them in for fun. I was like, he should have been playing for Fulham. This is disgraceful. I'm outraged.
I remember Ian Pearce as the one thing I remember about him is in that season where he played for us, he used to play at centre-back, and when things were going badly with 10 minutes to go, he'd go up front, and he was the only man in the world with, on Football Manager, his thing was CB/CF. That was his position.
I remember he got injured one game, and we'd already made all our subs, so they went like, just go up front. And he's like limping around, and he actually scored the equaliser.
What a man.
Portsmouth
at
at home,
Ian
I think that
Pearce.
was.
So back to the starting lineup. I think David Elm has got to be a contender.
Good goal against Burnley.
Good goal against Burnley. Are we up for him in the starting lineup?
Yeah, I think so.
As to our Scandinavian imports.
It does.
That's true, yeah.
Always good to have a solid Scandinavian in your lineup.
Is that the
And then-
three?
I think we should put your man Tony Thorpe on the bench.
Yeah.
All right then, and what?
I don't know him, but that's a classic Fulham story. Like,
Yeah.
just buy someone that we're just good against us and hope for the best.
He was a top goal scorer in what was then Division 2, and then we just bought him and didn't really play him that much, just because we could.
Just
What a life.
one of those signings that you just buy, a bit like, who am I thinking of? Willian. But when Spurs were about to buy him, I still think Chelsea just bought him because they could.
And when they bought Mohamed Salah because he'd scored like 3 hat-tricks against them for Basel.
Yes.
And then they just shipped him out to Fiorentina straight
Pretty sure
away.
this is what we did with Mladen Petric as well. We were just like, oh yeah, he banged in a few against us.
He scored that amazing free kick. Let's just
We
buy
haven't
him.
got any free kick takers. Let's buy Petric.
So, right, that is our Forgotten Fulham lineup finished. Elvis Hammond, David Elm, and Stefano Okaka, substitute places for Eddie Johnson and also for Tony Thorpe. I feel like Sol Ki-hyun and Gail Kakuta and Laurie Delavelle will all be very disappointed
They haven't
that
made the cut.
they haven't made the cut.
Sol Ki-hyun, he's missed out twice now.
Yeah.
Yes,
Also,
completely overlooked. So that is it then. Our lineup is Herrera, Ashton, Leacock, Zakawani, Omazusi, Petter, Milsom and Andreasen in the midfield. And then Elvis Hammond, David Elm and Stefano Okaka up front. The substitutes, Pascal Zubabula, Paul Stalteri, Nicky Shorey, Darren Pratley, Alexis Merton, Eddie Johnson and Tony Thorpe. So there is 18 players there, Jack, for you to contact for next year's Forgotten Fulham Invitational.
I'm very excited about Farrell managing the Fulhamish side.
Yeah.
I'll be playing.
Yeah, player manager.
Yeah.
Dennis Wise in his pomp.
Now, we've been picking our Forgotten Fulham 11, and thank you so much for all your suggestions. It's one of those tweets that everyone seems to love getting involved with and trying to come up with an obscure name. And quite frankly, we haven't even got close to mentioning all of the names that have been mentioned on Twitter. So what you can do is actually, we want to see if your Forgotten Fulham thoughts are the same as ours. So if you head to fulhamish.co.uk right now, you'll be able to vote for who you think should be in the Forgotten Fulham 11. And then on next week's podcast, we're going to reveal the results of that and see how your Forgotten Fulham 11 correlates with our Forgotten Fulham 11. I'm imagining it's going to be wildly, wildly different. If I could make a prediction. So get online now, fulhamish.co.uk, and select your Forgotten Fulham 11. It'll take you 2 seconds. It's really simple and easy, and it should be one of the first articles this year when you get there.
We have a nice snazzy website now.
It is very snazzy, so we want you to visit it and enjoy it and
read some articles.
Yeah, and if you are a budding writer, you can always get in contact. Jack is the editor.
They get in touch. We love writers. We want people to contribute. It's going to be fun.
Exactly.
We'll have a great time.
And also saves Jack having to do all the writing himself.
True.
So, chaps, thank you very much for this week's podcast. It's been a good one as ever.
You're very welcome.
Very good.
We'll be back next Monday after the Brighton game. It's going to be a tough one down at the Amex. To all of you that are going, have a great trip. It's always a good away day. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week. See you guys later.
Take it easy.
Ta-da.
See ya.
Let's say you're a sports fan.
Hey, I'm a sports fan.
A fan who traded in a smartphone and bought a new one on AT&T Next.
Oh, yeah.
Now you stream the game from the parking lot instead of paying for nosebleeds.
Tailgating for pros.
And you can use your new phone to check on your fantasy team instead of your honey-do list.
Oh, no, that's me.
And with the money you saved, now you can make that reality show about your fantasy sports team.
Okay, so I got an idea.
Right. Sports fans, you too can get up to $650 in credits per line when you switch to AT&T. Trade in your current phone and buy a new one on AT&T Next. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Come in now and get the shatter and water-resistant Samsung Galaxy S7 Active exclusively at AT&T.
Shatter-resistant when dropped less than 5 feet on a flat surface. IP68 water-resistant and less than 5 feet for up to 30 minutes. Rinse residue. Dry drops may cause scratches. Other damage to screen body. Limited time offer. Each line requires eligible port-in, trade-in, purchase, and service. Get minimum of $5 trade-in credit plus prepaid card and amount of device balance or early termination fee. Less trade-in fees, charges, and restrictions apply. See store for details.